Thank you for tuning in once again to his Vine and Fig Tree podcast. My name is Kurt Olson. I'm your host. I'm coming to you on the afternoon of January 29th, 2025. And a few things to bring to your attention here as we have launched into a new year, a new week. And as I am taping this, we have the Robert Kennedy confirmation hearing unfolding on Capitol Hill. Tulsi Gabbard, Kash Patel are either the same time or not far behind. And just a few things here to bring to your attention. And at the top here is something that happened at the end of the Biden administration. And this may not be the last thing we talk about from Team Biden, but it is worth mentioning. Um, During the latter days of Team Biden, there were some rollouts of pardons. And um, those pardons focus on various things. And one of them involved nonviolent drug offenses. And I became aware of something that someone learned elsewhere on social media. And because I follow this person, I'm like, oh, now that's fascinating. This happened Monday, the 27th. Um, and apparent the scandal, folks, of Joe Biden's cognitive decline surpasses anything we have seen. Watergate is child's play compared to this. And okay, other presidents have gotten themselves in hot water, but nothing that involves, oh, let's cover up the cognitive decline of a president, family, staff, party, members of Congress, media, you name it. The story unfolded on Monday. Relatives of an 8-year-old boy and his mother who were murdered by a Connecticut drug gang are outraged that a man convicted in the killings was one of the nearly 2,500 people whose drug-related prison sentences were commuted by former President Joe Biden in the last days in office. Adrian Peeler served a 20-year state prison sentence for murder conspiracy in the 1999 shootings of Leroy B.J. Brown and his mother, Karen Clark, in Bridgeport, Connecticut. Killings that shocked the city and led to improvements in state witness protection. Prosecutors said Brown and his mother were assassinated to prevent the child from testifying in another murder case. In December 2021, Peeler finished his state sentence but began serving a 15-year term in federal prison for dealing large amounts of crack cocaine. The federal sentence would have kept him behind bars until 2033. He is now set to be released in July. U.S. Senator Richard Blumenthal of Connecticut, a Connecticut Democrat who was the state's attorney general when Brown and his mother were killed, said, "Someone dropped the ball in Peeler's clemency." He and other political leaders in Connecticut, including Bridgeport Mayor Joe Ganim, criticized the commutation. "This was a real vicious murder that changed our laws," Blumenthal said in a statement. "It also highlights how we need to take a look at the pardon system to see how it can be improved." State Senator Stephen Harding, the Republican minority leader, called the clemency a slap in the face to all Connecticut victims of violent crimes and their families. Peeler's lawyer, Michael Brown, declined to comment on the clemency. He said Peeler has worked hard to rehabilitate himself in prison and is a different person than he was a quarter century ago. The guy has done a lot to work on himself and helped a lot of people during his incarceration, Brown said. If Adrian Peeler certainly has improved himself, good for him. Transformation, personal transformation. Uh, uh, the only real transformation comes spiritually through Christ, but whatever he's doing, fine. That does not disregard the issue at hand, which is the president's cognitive decline. Why didn't he know this? Who were the people who brought items to the president? Who was in charge? And we still don't know that. But this is a scandal. I am waiting for the book. I'm waiting for the interview. I'm waiting for however it surfaces, how bad things were inside the White House. Because I'm certain it was that bad. When we when the American people see a president who is consistently tripping up the steps of Air Force One or on a stage or turning around trying to shake the hand of someone who isn't there, there's other things going on behind the scenes. And can't wait for that to unfold and how the American people respond to it. COVID-19. This conveniently coincided with, very closely, I might add, if not identically, the confirmation of John Radcliffe as CIA director. We find out over the weekend that the CIA had a report that was done during the Biden years, and because Team Biden apparently didn't like the outcome of it, they kept it under wraps. Well, we come to find out that the lab leak was real, and a CIA report says so. So all of the all of the gaslighting of the American people about, oh, you're a racist because you're criticizing the Chinese and you don't believe it went from an animal to a human, and various other things that these people were called. We come to find out they actually weren't racist. They were actually they were able to draw conclusions on their own, and their lying eyes weren't lying to them. Their lying ears weren't lying to them. Um, I, for one, as an American, would love to see a whole lot more accountability on COVID 19. There's so many things that are going on that I believe, based on my own research and people I've come to trust, but a lot of harm was done to an awful lot of Americans, and not just Americans, but people around the world. And for there to be no accountability is just an indictment, and that's being kind. Um, issue following the Biden stuff. If you know Nate Silver is the person who puts out the 538 poll, cited frequently during election cycles. Well, Nate Silver also does some writing of columns. And Nate Silver, I don't think even he would disagree with this when people describe him as left of center in his thinking. Um, he did some reading of a variety of people on the left, and some of these people are scared straight that we have a conservative golden era upon us. I'm going to be here to call this out when this happens, because Donald Trump is not a conservative. Are there some things that he does that can be regarded as conservative? Yes, that is the case. But he is not a conservative. Before Donald Trump made that escalator ride down at the Trump Tower in May 2015, this man was giving money to both Democrats and Republicans. and not a conservative by any stretch of the imagination. And suddenly, everybody's talking about a conservative golden era as if he was the second coming of Ronald Reagan. Do I hope Donald Trump can be as successful as a Reagan? Absolutely. But Donald Trump is not a conservative. Make America Great Again is a populist movement generated on emotion and the personality of the person driving it, Donald Trump. And for people to recall this something other than what it is simply an effort to redefine conservatism. And I'm not going to get deep in the weeds on conservatism, but you can go back to the mid 20th century. Russell Kirk and William F. Buckley, they were colleagues in the post war era. And William F. Buckley, of course, started National Review magazine, one of the standard bearers in the conservative movement. And Russell Kirk wrote 30 some books. He was involved in higher ed. Um, and he wrote what is regarded as the, to put it this way, the Bible of the conservative movement. I believe it was called The Conservative Mind. And so if you want to know about conservatism, do some genuine research back to the mid 20th century. But don't call Donald Trump a conservative because he's not. And the key thing, the difference between a conservative like Reagan and Trump, Ronald Reagan was a free trader. And with Donald Trump, you are more inclined to get tariffs. Okay. He uses that as a negotiating tool and other things. Fine. That's Trump. But don't call him a conservative. He's not. Period. But I will say this about Trump. There are some things that you saw rather early and often in his first term, where he would go to social media, engage in these rants and personal attacks on people. And we're not seeing that with that kind of frequency these days. Or if it's happening, I'm simply missing it. So I don't know if he learned something and this is him changing or what. But that's a change that I see with Donald Trump. Now let me just get to his first week to 10 days in office. Donald Trump is running circles around the Democrats. I'm just going to list a few things here, folks, right off the top of my head. Get back to work. Donald Trump wants federal employees who got so comfortable with telework to get back to the office. More on that a little later. North Carolina. Um, in the first 10 days of the Trump administration, we are seeing activity that should have unfolded under Team Biden. Dump trucks, armies of dump trucks rolling into Western North Carolina, taking care of flooding debris from Hurricane Helene. Should have happened a long time ago. But late last week, Donald Trump goes to North Carolina and LA the same day, and he wants to know what kind of progress is being made on the wildfires. Thousands of buildings, homes, businesses, churches, you name it, being destroyed. And He's basically telling them, if it's taking you a week, it's taking too long. Um, so we got back to work, North Carolina, LA, pro-lifers. There were nearly 24 pro-lifers who were jailed in 2024 for their crimes, singing and praying at abortion clinics. They were prosecuted under the FACE Act, which was something passed probably sometime in the last 10 years or so, maybe a dozen, that gave the feds the ability to prosecute crimes at abortion clinics. Scary quotes intended. And those pro-lifers are free now. Bevelyn Williams, a young black mother, married, um, a grandmother, a Holocaust survivor, people now free. J6ers, the media is beside themselves. The left is beside themselves with the pardon of the J6ers, the people imprisoned following the January 6, 2021 protests at the U.S. Capitol. And while they are fixated on that, Trump's moving on. He's moving on to issues like trying to get Vladimir Putin and Volodymyr Zelensky at a negotiating table to negotiate peace between Russia and Ukraine. He's dealing with Israel and Hamas. He's talking about ending the federal income tax. He's dismissing a lawsuit of a doctor in Texas who was a whistleblower at a hospital involving transgender surgeries. Ethan Heim. Now no longer having the worry of a federal lawsuit against him. Trump, to his credit, is running circles around these people. And the Democrats, we had protests after he was elected and on Inauguration Day. We're not seeing that this time. Is the left adjusting because he won convincingly? He won the popular vote. He won every swing state. He brought the Senate and the House with him, even the House's slight majority. I don't know what the deal is, but this I know. The left is still rattling from this election. And Trump is making them look very bad. For example, yesterday in Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt, as she is questioned by the legacy media in Washington, D.C., we come to find out one of the things Team Trump stopped $50 million in condoms that were going to go to Gaza. Were they headed to Afghanistan as well? Don't know. But $50 million in condoms. And speaking of stupid government actions, let's get to the DOGE. The Department of Government Efficiency is something that is bringing much fear and trepidation to the people in the federal government, Democrats, people on the left, the media. Oh, what are they going to do? And in this podcast, I'm going to link a short video from a congressman from Tennessee. This was something that I saved from early December. when they were having one of their first meetings with Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy on DOGE. And I'm going to remain cautious optimism. I want DOGE to be wildly successful in cutting the scope, cost, size of government. And we'll get to that a little bit later here, um, as one of these things has become news in the last 24 hours. But a little bit more regarding DOGE. This is a piece that I came across from Open the Books. Open the Books, I've been familiar with for a good 5, 6, 7 years now. It's a group that initially started for the purpose of creating um, a database on federal spending. They have gotten now into higher ed, some of the states as well. And I just want to read a fairly decent portion of this piece that came out just yesterday. Delete, 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 delete. 75 agencies listed on the Federal Register no longer exist. The Trump administration was only a few minutes old when it was hit with 3 lawsuits, all concerning the Department of Government Efficiency. The suits were filed before the inauguration ceremony had even concluded, and President Trump had signed an executive order establishing DOGE. The suits argue DOGE doesn't comply with the Federal Advisory Committee Act, FACA, FACA, which requires advisory committees to meet certain requirements like politically balanced membership, public accessible meetings, and a public charter. Later on January 20, Trump signed and released executive order establishing and implementing the President's Department of Government Efficiency. The document makes clear that rather than a traditional advisory committee, DOGE will instead repurpose an old Obama-era office, U.S. Digital Services, which is housed in the Executive Office of the President. The scope of DOGE's task becomes clearer when you peruse the Federal Register, the official journal of the U.S. government, where all rules and public notices can be found. A staggering 441 different federal agencies are listed, but shockingly, a lot of those agencies are effectively defunct or obsolete. They've been subsumed by other entities, renamed, or don't even exist any longer. A total of 75 agencies listed in the Federal Register are defunct, many for decades. 39 of those agencies were temporary commissions created to study a single issue and produce a report, usually at the end of a year. The Commission on the Future of the United States Aerospace Industry and 21st Century Workforce Commission are 2 such examples. 12 agencies have closed but have had their duties merged with another agency. For example, the Vallis Caldera Trust and Oklahoma City National Memorial Trust, once separate entities, are now integrated into the National Park Service. More rarely, agencies were terminated by an act of Congress or administrative reshuffling. So, when the National Institute for Literacy and the Resolution Trust Corporation. Record keeping within the Federal Register, which is supposed to be the definitive guide to government policy, is shockingly bad. Not only are agencies listed that are long defunct, but records of those agencies are often not updated, so members of the public must conduct deep research to ascertain the composition of their own government. Just as different parts of the government report different total personnel counts or payroll figures, different parts of the federal government don't have a shared understanding of how many agencies are active, what they're currently named, and what they're doing, if anything. If the federal government were a book, there's no usable table of contents for the average American to find out what they're seeking. As Open the Books researchers dutifully sort through the records to determine which agencies still exist and how much that those are costing the American taxpayers, it's become clear there's an opportunity to untangle this web in a public database. By cataloging every federal agency, it will create a clearer picture of the government as it stands? Where are the ghost agencies that can be deleted? Where is the duplication? Bloat. For DOGE to be as effective as possible, it's necessary to have the best possible understanding of the status quo as of 2024. Open the Books will periodically release a list of agencies our auditors have studied, charting their growth, expense, and activity over time. Are taxpayers getting their money's worth? Are they getting anything at all? Regardless of your affiliation, it's in everyone's interest to open the books together to find out. That's all I'm going to read of that story from Open the Books. But it highlights the significance that involves the Department of Government Efficiency. And what they have creatively done is they have put this under the Office of Management and Budget. So this isn't like the Department of Homeland Security, a brand new department. They found something that was in the Office of Management and Budget. They renamed it, repurposed it, and hopefully it can have the kind of results that Americans want. And again, this thing is supposed to last until Independence Day 2026, the 250th birthday of the country. So for me, cautious optimism. Let's hope Elon Musk and company come up with something. And let's hope the bureaucracy and the Congress don't pitch fits when the good and the bad and the ugly are made known. Two other things here that I have for you. One of the ways in which Team Trump is going to try and save money, buyouts. This emerged in the last 24 hours. We found out yesterday that an email is being sent to federal employees today, all 2 million of them. And they're being told they have an opportunity to take a buyout. And the idea from Team Trump is let's use it to cut the size, scope, cost of government. They believe anywhere between 5 and 10% of federal employees are going to take a buyout, and they will be positions that don't get filled. So that's very interesting. But the last thing I want to bring to your attention is what happened late last week. I've told people once or twice now, I'm going to be here to call balls and strikes during the Trump administration. I'm not going to be someone blowing a trumpet just because Donald Trump is some genius. And I want to bring this to your attention. Happened last Friday. Now, folks, when a news story breaks on a Friday, especially a Friday afternoon or evening, it's meant to do one thing: make you not be aware of it. The goal is to, well, we're launching into a weekend. The American people are busy. They've got things going on in their schedule, and they're not going to notice this. This is what happened last Friday evening. It broke about 10:30 on the Associated Press wire. The Trump administration has fired about 17 independent inspectors general at government agencies, a sweeping action to remove oversight of this new administration that some members of Congress are suggesting violated federal oversight laws. The dismissals began Friday night and were effective immediately, according to two people familiar with the actions. They spoke on condition of anonymity to provide details that have not been made public. Neither confirmed the exact number of firings, but an email sent by one of the fired inspectors general said roughly 17 inspectors general had been removed. Trump confirmed the move in a conversation with reporters aboard Air Force One on Saturday, claiming it's a very common thing to do. He said he would put good people in there. That would be very good. Congress was not given the legal required 30-day notice about the removals, something that even a top Republican is decrying. There may be a good reason the IGs were fired. We need to know that if so, Senator Chuck Grassley, chair of the Senate Judiciary Committee, said in a statement. I'd like further explanation from President Trump. Regardless, the 30-day detailed notice of removal that the law demands was not provided to Congress, said Grassley, a Republican from Iowa. The role of the modern day Inspector General dates to post Watergate, Washington, when Congress installed offices inside agencies as an independent check against mismanagement and abuse of power. Though inspectors general are presidential appointees, some serve presidents of both parties. All are expected to be nonpartisan. This story goes a little further. The inspectors general are supposed to be neutral. They're supposed to be people who just walk in, they examine a program or they examine an agency or a specific area of an agency, said what happened here. They get receipts, accounts, all kinds of stuff. And they issue reports. And I made mention last week about Department of Justice Inspector General Michael Horowitz, who took a grand total of 4 years, nearly 4 years, to issue a report on what happened on January 6, 2021. The question was always how many people were FBI employees that were involved in those events. And we found out on December 12th, 26, 26 confidential human sources. And that's just the kind of thing that these inspectors general are supposed to be doing. And members of Congress use them as they ask questions of certain agencies and departments. So that is something that has unfolded here late last week. Now, can we take Trump at his word? Oh, we're going to find good people and replace them. Okay, maybe so. But the release of the story was solely meant to not get attention. So that's all I have this week. And once again, I thank people for watching, sharing, reading my column, and sharing. Just trying to build a brand here, folks. This podcast is now on YouTube, and just trying to do a few things more will be added, but stick with me here, and so you can be looking for my column that's going to drop on Sunday. That's just the best time for me for that to happen, folks, and that's all that timing is. If you can read it at your leisure at another time, that's all fine and good. But until next time, thank you for watching, and until next time, God bless and goodbye.